Okay.
Well, for us to get started, I want to present our speaker, Ingeniero Tomás Ángel Sancho Marco. He was in Zaragoza, Spain, and he has a Master in Civil Engineering with also degrees in Law and Business Administration and Management. So he has been studying for a long time, like many. He's a former president of the Ebro Water Confederation and president founder of Free State societies related to water. And he has been the general manager of engineering consultancy firm. Nowadays, he's currently working in the Spanish Ministry for Ecological Transition, a relatively new ministry in Spain. He's a past president of the World Council of Civil Engineers, where he was also president of the Standing Committee on Water. He's also currently a member of the Federation of Engineering Organizations Executive Council since 2015. And he's also the chair of the Working Group on Water of WFEO, which is sponsored by the Institution of Engineers of Spain. He coordinates the Technical Committee on Water for the Spanish Colegio de Ingenieros, Caminos, Canales, y Puertos, which represents the civil engineering in Spain. He's also a member of the Spanish Committee on Large Dams and a member of the Club of Rome, a very distinguished group. He's considered an expert in the topics, as he's had wide experience not only in Spain but internationally in infrastructure, funding, planning, and water management. With you, I have the honor to present Tomás Ángel Sancho Marco. Tomás, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Emilio. Dear colleagues, my pleasure to be with you today. We can share this first report of the World Federation of Engineering Organizations with our World Council of Civil Engineers related with water and the SDG 6. This first report is about the best practices on drought and flood management, engineers' contribution. Next, please. Tito, siguiente. Well, this is the index of presentation that, as I've told you before, the Working Group on Water has committed to deliver 3 monographs during the 3 years mandate, and the World Council of Civil Engineers, the chair of the Standing Committee on Water, is the executive director of this group of the World Federation. Next, please. Siguiente. You can see, oh no, the previous, please. Thank you. You can see that in the dictionary, engineering is nearly absent. You can see the little word engineering in the whole picture, the ABCs of disaster risk reduction. This is not only in flood and droughts. In the international landscape, unfortunately, engineering is not always present as it will be our desire. And so we can work hardly with the United Nations, with UNESCO, with all the global organizations to reinforce the role of engineering, and especially in water issues. This is our objective and our commitment in these years, because if not, here many initiatives, many actions, but engineering is not present. And so in this moment, we are working hard to reach that engineering will be considered as an accelerator to the goal of SDG 6. Siguiente, por favor. Well, in this report, we are showing to the international community of professionals and also the agencies of United Nations that the best practices for the risk management of droughts and floods, highlighting the engineers' contribution. A few decades before, the approach for the droughts and floods management was the crisis-based approach. There was a crisis, there were accidents, there were disasters, and after that, engineers to solve the problems, to make some investments, etc. But today we have changed the focus to risk management with an adaptive management approach. You can see in this presentation. Siguiente, por favor. Well, you can see here that really, speaking about natural disasters, floods and droughts are the most important cause of natural disasters. You can see these statistics. Floods is the first on the range, but also droughts are very, very important. Next, please. You know that the total elimination of the risk is not possible, but we can advance in the implementation of protection measures, and it's necessary to promote awareness of self-protection incidents. Droughts are also an extreme hydrological phenomenon with low water availability, which take place slowly, sometimes imperceptibly, and when detected is too late and can cause very high social, economical, and environmental impacts. These natural events, drought floods, have become current global topics regarding water issues as reflected in the Agenda 2013, not only in SDG 6, but also in SDG 11. Some economical estimations are saying that the incidence of this natural phenomenon are about 2% of the GDP of the nations in the developing world. It's not as huge as the COVID this year effect, but it is very important, and the management of these events, these extreme events, are very important for development, especially in the developing world, but also in the first world. Siguiente, por favor. Well, the damages are tangible and intangible, and we usually evaluate the direct damages, but there are a lot of indirect damages, and also, unfortunately, the victims and also the damages in the historical heritage and landscape. Siguiente, por favor. The natural extreme events related with water will increase with the effect of climate change. This is, you know, and this is universally accepted, that the hydrology will be more intense, with more intense floods and more intense droughts all around the world. Por favor. As I've told you before, traditional approaches were reactive. The measures and actions that are only triggered after the extreme event has occurred, but now the approaches are based on risk reduction with faster risk management, with the consideration of the climate change, and with the focus on the sustainable development. And there are measures prospective, proactive, and compensations. Three important actions that first the prospective, after the corrective, and the compensation. Siguiente. Also, the OECD are putting their focus in the importance of the governance in the management of extreme hydrological events. It is important that all the stakeholders, mechanisms, regulatory and legal frameworks will be integrated, coordinated, and the OECD has detected that they are very weakness situation in more of these aspects: data and information, regulatory frameworks, integrity and transparency, monitoring and evaluation, clear roles and responsibility. There are a long way to be run, but the direction is well marked. Siguiente. It's very important the role of the knowledge, technology, and innovation in this risk management. We must, I want to remark the hydrological and hydraulic models, the hazard and flood risk maps, the actions based in technology and innovation, and the advances in warning systems. Today, we have more tools than ever before, and these tools are based in the technology and the engineers management. Next one, siguiente. In the report, we collect 19 cases and international experiences. You can see the 19 boxes that are on this report, and there comes from all around the world, in Africa, America, Asia, Europe, Australia, and so we can collect, fortunately, a big experience and a big cases, a big number of cases all around the world. Siguiente, por favor. You can see here the first one and the last one of these boxes in the report. The first is the Lake Chad. You can see in the figures how currently the surface of the lake is about 20% of its former surface. 10 years before, it was only 10%. And you can see the consequences of not to implement a risk management and to prevent the droughts in this case. This is one of the most important lakes in the world. And on the right, you can see another box of the report, the last one. In this case is the reuse of urban water for the wetland conservation in Apulia, in Italy. How can we dedicate natural resources to better improve the environment thanks to the reuse of urban water? this is a good experience in Italy that the colleagues sent to us to this report. Siguiente, por favor. This is another good international experience. It's between Spain and Portugal, international cooperation, and not only for the floods, also for the droughts. And so in the 5 shared river basins, Spain and Portugal signed in 1998 the WFEO agreement. Next one, siguiente. And so both countries, both governments manage the river basin in their territory, but with some conditions in order to for instance, there are a work group on flow discharge regime, droughts, and emergency situation, and well, both countries designate a coordinator in order to share information and order also to manage jointly this natural phenomena. Siguiente, por favor. Also, it's very important to speak about the drought management plan, because not only the floods are introducing serious damages in our countries, in our societies, also the drought management plans. This is very important. This is a good experience in Spain. We have introduced these special plans and with a system of drought indicators, and so with control points about volume stored in reservoirs, groundwater levels, river flows, discharge, and precipitations, we established the status in the several river basins of Spain, and we can consider normal status, pre-alert status, alert status, or emergency status. And in this pre-alert, alert, or emergency status, there are considered several actions that will be implemented when the situation is in this way. Siguiente. We have recently reconsidered these plans, and in the last drought period in Spain, 2014-2018, the drought management plans are revealed as an essential tool for drought management, and we can get a good improvement of water management, coordinated use of surface water and groundwater, water saves on irrigation, and improving on the monitoring networks have been key elements to cope with droughts. You can see the evolution in the Júcar River Basin Authority and the period in which the river basin was in alert and emergency situation. And so they put on the table several restrictions to the use of water. And so the damages were less than in precedent droughts that suffered in the same river basin of the Júcar. Siguiente. Well, we remark in this report the good experience and best practices. The first one considered best practices is the risk management plans, also for floods and droughts. In the box, in the several box, we consider the experience in Spain, and also the experience in the USA For instance, this is the regional watersheds in the Johnson Creek River Basin. So internationally, there consider these risk management plans as a previous way to prepare and to have really an adaptive management of floods and droughts. Siguiente. The second experience and practice that we remark in the report is the structural protection measures. Obviously, there are another measures as we consider after as the nature-based solutions, but it is important to have these structural protection measures. The nature is very hard sometimes, and it's important to have to get flood control reservoirs, diversion channels, embankment and dikes, channel modification, drainage of liner structures, green infrastructure and natural water retention measures, hydrological restoration and flood zone measures, and non-structural or management measures, prevention, alert, and response that we can see in the next slide. I want to remark this point. Engineering is in evolution, but we can maintain the good practices. The embankment and dikes, the reservoirs for the flood control are very important. Also the reservoirs and the aquifer exploitation for the droughts management. And so we are not forgetting these structural protection measures. They are very important and they must be implemented in the river basin. Next one, siguiente. You can see, for instance, the reservoirs management for flood control. There are two boxes in the report. At the left, the experience in the Ebro River Basin in Spain, how you can decrease very importantly the peak of the flood, and also you can obtain the benefits to cost of these infrastructures in order to prevent the damages of the floods. The right side is the experience in the United States of America. This is the extract of the report of the US Army Corps of Engineers. Since 1936, the Corps has completed over 400 major lake and reservoir projects, and they finally obtained the conclusion that for each dollar that they have invested to protect for floods, they have a benefit of $6, 1 to 6. So it is very important, these accumulated benefits. And also it is very important that in our countries we can obtain after an episode of flood or an episode of droughts, the economical damages that we have avoid with our actuation. This is very important. Usually we can say that, oh, we have the flood peak has decreased from 3 to 1, but it is important not to say only the quantity of the flood, but also the damages that we have avoided with the management of these natural events, with the risk management. Siguiente, por favor. Another best practice is the non-structural or management measures. We can see several of them. the adaptation measures for potentially affected assets for damage mitigation. The damage is not only caused by water, it's also caused by how the infrastructures, the buildings, the installation are prepared in the adaptation for these events. Also, the prevention measures, land management and urban planning. Sometimes these buildings, these installations, these public services as hospitals, colleges are in flood areas with the risk that are associated. And so it's important as engineers to develop this land management and urban planning and in order to avoid this situation. Another measures are the warning measures, the flood warning systems with the technology, satellite, and the georadar. We can implement these flood warning systems in the river basins. They are very, very effective in order to the management and also in order to advise the citizens for the future situation in the next days or hours. These are related with this civil protection in order to adopt measures, evacuate population, or take care with provisional measures to defense against flood in certain areas. Also, there are an effective measure as flood insurance that we must implement in order to decrease the damages for the population. Siguiente. You can see, for instance, in Spain, there are the same in other countries, the National Cartographic System or floodable areas. We have studied all the rivers in the Spanish territory, and so we have remarked the floodable areas, and so it is very useful for this urban adaptation and landscape land territory adaptation, and in order to not use these areas to sensible buildings or collective services as hospital, colleges, or dangerous installations that will produce a very high hazard and very high damages if they fails. This is obviously developed with tools of engineering in two ways, the hydrological models and the hydraulic programs in order to study the floodable areas. And also, it is very important to use the digital models of the terrain to run these programs of two-dimension flood models. Siguiente. Another best practice is the measures to deal with drought risks. This is very important to implement the integrated water resource management, not only during the droughts, always. Also, the management and control measures as resource allocation, water savings, and temporary transfer of rights. This is very useful. And the first experiences in the United States, but in other countries as Spain, has flexibilized the rights of water in order to be able to transfer rights to another uses to other with more importance and preference in time of droughts Also, the environmental measures to prevent these droughts, it is very important. The forest, for instance, protect the forest in our river basins. Also, it is important to have warning and monitoring system to detect the drought in the same time that they are coming with these indicators, because if not, when you know that you are in a drought, sometimes it's very, very late to take and to put measures to fight against this drought. And also, as before with the floods, the agricultural insurance is important. Siguiente. Well, in this report, we remark the importance of planning, as I've told you before, addressing the risk in a planned way, anticipate, graduate the measures, coordinate actions, establish the actors, the measures, monitoring, reviewing these plans. In this process, the engineering participation is quite important in input the measures to be studied, proposed and applied, and optimizing the risk management. The second lesson that we remark is the convenience of the adaptive management in land use, in buildings and facilities, evacuation of people and property, and reuse. Engineering also plays a very important role in estimating the occurrence of time, the natural phenomena, the potential affected areas, the risk and potential damages, the definition of adaptation actions, the best evacuation alternatives to non-flood areas, the best options to guarantee the essential uses of water and limit socioeconomic damages in droughts, and to establish previously appropriate guidelines and actions in flood and drought management plans. Siguiente. The three lessons learned is the technology and improvement of results. The weather forecast satellites, the GIS, the geographic information systems, the digital model of the terrain, hydraulic models. Engineering is totally necessary for its correct use and to foster its improvement. It is what drives and focuses the development of decision support systems, both in floods and droughts. And another lessons learned is that we need a combination of sound engineering to achieve satisfactory solutions case by case. You can see in the diagram there are options and actions for the integrated water resource management, but also for water security we need infrastructure, and there are physical base in air, water and soil, and with special attention to the occupation, land and water use. But we must combine the management, the non-structural measures, the nature-based solutions, but also structural, and before of that, to have a very good system for previous data and for monitoring the situation. Siguiente. Well, finally, in this report, we remark the challenges for engineers. Currently, the engineering practice has become increasingly collaborative. We have in a process which that is favoring specialization, undermining engineers' leadership role formerly assumed by more broad-based generalist and self-sufficient engineers. On the other hand, specialization provides high qualification for the operation of complex tools in the analysis of these extreme events. And so we must have this formation, this qualification is important to have in the universities, and also in our professional association. We must provide this CFD for our engineers. Another aspect increasingly present in engineering today is global practice and its corresponding demands. We are working with several languages, with several regions, with different water culture, and we must adapt to diverse local factors. It's important to have the cross-knowledge transfer between countries with different features and idiosyncrasies. So, organization as our World Council of Civil Engineers must play a very important role in this sense. Siguiente. Well, in this report that we remark again that it's important to have a survey to better global statistics regarding the number of engineering professionals dedicated to water issues. We send a survey to several organizations, but unfortunately, we have not information of how many engineers are working today in water management. The third challenge is related with innovation. Today, with the technology development, with the BIM, the 3D printing, the Internet of Things, the big data, the machine learning, the augmented reality, the drone, the artificial intelligence, well, there are many possibilities, and it's important that engineers define the tools that we need using these technologies to reach our goals to the risk management. And it is important for infrastructure construction and design of resilient systems, and for the management of extreme events and restoration. Siguiente. This is a very important challenge for engineers. No, we are not only technical professionals. We must be leaders in our societies, as the Vision 2025 of the American Society of Civil Engineers remains a few years ago. So risk assessment and its mitigation is a key principle of engineering practices. And it imposes a responsible commitment to civil engineering professionals to adopt due to assess the effect of climate change on the works and the service they provide. Engineers, firstly, in charge of public facilities and infrastructure design and management, will have to adapt to climate change at the local level to ensure public health and safety. But also, secondly, the ground level of awareness to this risk and the high visibility of the impacts derived from the most intense storms and extraordinary events raise accountability issues. Engineers who do not exercise due diligence regarding climate change, in short, may be considered personally or jointly liable for damages or failures arising from the impacts of climate change on engineering systems and water security. Dear colleagues, our responsibility is huge, is very high. Siguiente. Considering the challenges in the for engineering, we must compare emerging and future areas. For instance, we remark deep studies of the climate change effects on resources. They incorporate climate change measures in national policies, strategies, and plans. Include climate change as one of the factors to consider in the design, operation, and management for the safety of the new critical infrastructures and for the adaptation of existing ones. And to achieve these goals, we must implement the following actions. Develop joint initiatives to develop projects within the innovation trends regarding the fields of information, planning, engineering, technology, and water management. Join efforts and develop research and development and innovation projects that applying developed technologies and instruments, mathematical models, measurement, telemetry, remote control, remote sensing, purification treatments, generation of unconventional resources through water regeneration or desalination, etc., allow the improvement of water management. Establish technological innovation as a key development factor. And improve governance, invest in institutional capacity building, and apply integrated, transparent, and solutions in water management. Siguiente. New role challenges. The 2030 Agenda states that the achievement of sustainable development in its three dimensions, economic, environmental, and social, must be addressed in an integrated and balanced manner. Thus, water is the SDG 6, and so access to water and sanitation, to affordable and no-pollution energy, to food security, sustainable growth, the ability to adapt to risks related to climate and natural disasters, as droughts and floods, resilient infrastructure, international cooperation, are clear examples of interconnected issues. Today, engineers around the world are addressing global challenges, such as climate change, locally. When they carry out studies or project works, they must take these global challenges into consideration. Engineers, decentralized teamwork often. Leading multidisciplinary teams in droughts and floods is a great challenge. Furthermore, increased globalization requires engineers to overcome any cultural bias in its professional practice, a skill that should be exercised. In conclusion, engineers must best practices worldwide, such as 2013 WFEO Codes of Best Practices for Sustainable Development and Environmental Protection. Think with a global vision and act with a local vision. And also the Code of Good Practices, Principles of Adaptation to Climate Change for Engineers. Well, this is the final reflection in the report. In the next slide, siguiente, you can see the contributors of the report. There are more than 18 professionals. Our appreciate to all of them. And well, this is the presentation. Siguiente. I am open to your comments or to the discuss of this floods and management, flood and droughts management, the contribution of engineering and best practices. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tomás. We will now open for questions or comments.
May I talk?
Yes, please, go ahead.
Yes. Well, my name is Mustafa Shehu. I'm listening to this webinar from Nigeria, my hometown of Kano, in Nigeria. For those who don't know, I'm the Vice President of the World Federation of Engineering Organizations. Let me use this opportunity to thank TOMÁS for this very illuminating paper. I have been privileged to listen, from the beginning to the end, and congratulate him and WCCE for this particular effort. And in the paper, there is in one of the slides that is on WFEO probably to come up with a survey of professionals who are working in the in the water sector, and I think this is a very good one. But probably we even have to extend it to the other sectors so that WFEO as a global engineering body will have a comprehensive register of professional engineering personnel working in different sectors: water sector, energy sector, environment sector, civil sector, structural, engineering, and stuff like that. So that if there are, either local challenges or international challenges in any sector, WFEO can be a reference point and could offer, its services, having, a comprehensive list of professionals from each sector. So I want to thank you for this advice, and I will take it up with the WFEO. And since you are also in the Executive Council, we jointly together have to propose something to the WFEO leadership on this particular matter. So, and let me also use this opportunity to greet everybody here. I can see my friend Alfonso Gonzalez Fernandez. Good morning, good afternoon to all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mustafa, for your comments. Any more comments?
Emilio,
Yes.
I would like to make a comment.
Go ahead,
Thank you.
Alfonso.
Thank you, Emilio. Well, first of all, I want to thank Tomás for this incredible presentation. You're very focused on this matter. Tomás is your specialty. But as you know, we are struggling every day in many matters for engineers. But in this issue, I would like you to ask, now that you're working for the government and you're still working in WCCE and also in the World Federation of Engineers Organization, if there is a possibility to have only one code to best practices in sustainable development and environmental matters. I mean, FEMOI is working by its own way. The American Society of Civil Engineers has its own path. World Council is working there. UNESCO is working there. United Nations is working. Everybody is working on that theme, but I'm really concerned about that we are not making a joint to have only a code. Do you consider it is going to be possible in a short time? Thank you. And again, thank you for the presentation.
Well, thank you, Mustafa. My pleasure to meet you again. And thank you, Alfonso, for your considerations. The working group on water, specifically in water issues, try to do that, to have a common umbrella, adding the capabilities and the strengths of both organizations, the World Council of Civil Engineers and the World Federation of Engineering Organizations. So, World Council is a partner of United Nations Water, UN. WFEO is not partner, but we are jointly representing World Council and World Federation in the meetings of UN Water, because the goal is to increase this consideration of engineering. You can see the little word in the ABC of the natural disaster reduction. I in the here in Spain in the ministry, in the meetings of You and Water, in the meetings all around the world about water issues, I always asked how many times we can hear governance. A lot of times. But engineering? No, engineering is it's infrastructure. It's not important today, and it is quite confused. So it's important to have a global umbrella to represent engineer in the global institutions. The global umbrella is the World Federation of Engineering Organizations, but the World Council of Civil Engineering are very specialized in issues as water or as structures and other matters. Important the joint liaison. You are on the right, Alfonso, because if not, the politics and the social stakeholders not consider engineering as an accelerator to reach the SDGs and the 2030 agenda.
Tomás, let me ask a comment of 2005 when the United Nations started their issue on sustainable development, Millennium Development Goals, now Sustainable Development Goals. It was interesting that WFEO attended all the high-level meetings as an NGO. But up until that time, and thanks really to the initiative of former President Dato, and I was named representative, which was only represented by science, but it was science and technology, and thus the engineers, we took space there, and we made we made an impact into that process in what we have today as the Sustainable Development Goals, because engineering is it. Fortunately, in the past we have not been too active, and now I think that some of the initiative, even with UNESCO as well as other UN bodies, engineering are starting to show. But we have to think that engineers tend to be humble, and we don't like to toot our horns. And you can only need to get more and more involved. And what's not happened is that even in WFEO and WCCE and other international organizations, although the organization is pushing for the process, it is important that the member nations of those organizations also become involved. And the idea is not only to become involved at the engineering organization, but also influence the organizations in their respective countries. This is a very difficult process. It is something that engineers have not been usually too up to. I can say that in the United States, that is not the case. The engineering sector is very active with the government, but has not been as active in moving into the international arena. And that becomes very critical, that we, the individual organizations, need to get involved with the national governments in promoting these all these efforts. And Tomás, I'm glad that you said that an agency that is not, let's say, widely known, though making a big difference, which was my former agency, the U.S. U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, has an enormous amount of knowledge on these topics. The agency has been since the Revolutionary War, when it was created. Actually, it was created before the nation. So it is very important that we use those resources. They're all available, and how we can get together with the WFEO and the WCCE to push, engineering organizations in these world arena. So it's really our challenge to get moving into that process. Any other comments or questions? Here we have a beautiful opportunity with a very knowledgeable to engage in discussions of these subjects. And I think our purpose is to do that, to use the forum of the World Council of Civil Engineers. We're starting to get participation from ECI. We're starting to get participation from FAEL. And we will be continuing this series of webinars, and probably today are sending the notice for the next webinar. Any comments from anybody in the group, please? I'm certain that every one of you have, similar issues, like, for example, between Austria and Hungary. And we have two representatives that make honor to their organizations in their respective countries. I don't want to put you on the spot, but I think that the important thing is how we can make comments to enrich the actions of all the engineering profession throughout the world. Tomás, and I think one thing that was missing, and I want to put it in, is the issue of conflicts. Water resources has, throughout human history, created conflicts. You in Spain have some big conflicts that go on with the transfer of water within watersheds. Tomás, if you want to comment a little bit about this, or anybody else that wants to comment on it.
Yes, of course. You must take into account that more than 1/3 of the river basins are shared river basins between countries. The natural river basin is not the under the politic territorial division, and so they usually introduce conflicts, not only between countries but also between regions in the same country, provinces, or in Spain the regional governments, the autonomies. So this is very important to have instruments to the management of these transfers, and to have bodies to the jointly management of shared river basins and aquifers. There are a few aquifers shared by several countries also. And so this is very important, but I try to express very well. There are several political aspects between negotiations between governments and the political representatives of these regions of these countries. But it is very important that all the negotiation agreements will be based in good technical studies, because if not, if you have not studies very well based, the decisions will be wrongly, will be a mistake. So the Albufeira agreement is a very good example. Here in Spain, the most important transfer, the Aqueducto Tajo Segura, the Tagus Segura aqueduct, in this summer, there are every month a meeting of the the committee of the management of this transfer, and the quantity of water that can be transferred from the Tagus to the Segura River is under agreement of this technical committee. This is very important to have instruments of management, and also rules of the exploitation of these shared river basins, or the transfer between river basins for the exploitation of the aquifers must be very well studied, and with the agreement of all the stakeholders that are using the water in this site. It is a very important aspect, effectively. Emilio, thanks for your question.
I think maybe a future topic is to be water transfers and how the different water laws in different countries, take all these things into consideration, knowing that the term water wars really explains what happens just about every place in the world. They do become wars, although not as the usual that we think of battles, but they have provided for battles. So maybe this is something, Tomás, that we need to consider, how we can do a webinar where we can get people from different countries and briefly their experiences in this process.
Thank you, Emilio. Very interesting.
Thank you. I make this comment because I was involved briefly on one of those issues, which was the transfer of water for Valencia from Rio Ebro. So I am very much aware of all the of all the energy that was going in Spain in that process, as well as what you're talking about, Segura. They still keep the political flames going on. Any other questions or comment? We have. I'm really happy that we have.
Alfonso. Emilio, Alfonso pide la palabra.
Okay, Alfonso, adelante.
Thank you. Before concluding this meeting, I must add that Tomás' presentation started Tito's work and Emilio's through the established construction committee, standing committee in WCCE. And so, Tomás, you are in premier time. I mean, this is our first activity about this kind of webinars, as Emilio told us before. So this is important because I know Tito's working hard with Emilio, fighting to find some other distinguished colleagues to have more activities like this one. So I'm very pleased to be here in this first activity, and thank all of us to be here too. Thank you to all of our distinguished colleagues from all different parts. I'm looking people from Argentina, Bolivia, Mexico, Costa Rica, Puerto Rico, Nigeria, and Yuri from also from Georgia. So that's I think this was a very important activity. So thank you, Emilio, again, and thank you, Tomás, and for gathering all of us today. Thank you so much.
Also, thank you for that, but I must say that the driving force behind this was Tito Fennett. So he has been really pushing this. I want to say that we really have two sessions going on. We have one for the Americas, which we started as an experiment that Tito thought about, and then it's gone very well. We had groups of up to 80 persons participating in these. These are in Spanish. And we decided to move one step forward to include Europe and Africa. But understand that because of the hour differences, it makes it difficult to have them both on it. So you will be seeing more and more of these seminars coming through on Mondays in Spanish and Tuesday eventually for Europe and Africa, but they will also be available for those in the Americas. So we're trying to develop this, getting different topics. I don't think we have a limitation of topics. We have had very good success. But Tito, why don't you tell us about the next webinar in English, please?
Yes, thank you, Engineer. We have next week a webinar in America about the COVID-19, and we also will have for the next 2 weeks in August 11, the second conference in English, decarbonization. It's a presentation from Dr. Oliver Probst, how all the world has facing the crisis of the carbon and oil power to change to renewable power. So we have this on August 11, and the next week we have in Spanish the webinar about the COVID-19 and the civil engineers against the COVID-19.
I think, Tito, to expand on that, the one next week that we have in Spanish is about the experiences in the construction sector of activating the activities in construction during the pandemic process.
That's right.
It's going to be very nice because we have six different countries that we're presenting their approach, and I do want to, invite our from Europe and Africa that they're welcome to submit topics and speakers for these. I think that is the wealth that we can bring forward, and we'd like to see the efforts in different parts of the world.
Yes, the next week is in Spanish. It's for America, and we have all the participation of the civil engineer against the COVID-19, even construction, even administration. We have many topics to talk about, how we are reactivating the construction in the middle of the pandemic, how we can fight against the pandemic with sanitation and the sewage plants. We have to be ready, and there are a lot of topics. We have 5 panelists: Puerto Rico, Mexico, Honduras, Uruguay, Costa Rica. And in 2 weeks, we will have the conference of energy, the decarbonization, how we are facing this crisis of energy. And we hope Africa joins soon with us, with some panelists, even on a webinar or even in an individual conference. And we also are recording all these meetings, so you can consult later. We are recording this in YouTube, so it's easy to share with other people.
Good. Actually, yeah, Alfonso contacted me last week for the possibility of making a presentation at one webinar of WCCE. So I am actually looking into that. Probably by September, I should be in a position to present one of the WCCE.
Thank you, Mustafa. I sent you today a mail.
Yeah, thank you. I will let you know the progress probably a couple of days, I will send the topic of the paper I want to make presentation on the next 1 week.
Yep, you're much welcome to do it, and want to open the invitation to the participants in really, asking for topics or even providing presentations.
Okay. Okay. And I just learned that you'll have a session on energy. Is it in August or when? Otherwise, I could also be one of the panelists if there is a webinar on energy.
August 11th.
August 11th?
Yes. We'll send you the link so you can get in.
Okay. Okay. Let me have the details so that I can also participate for that one.
Mustafa, I just made comment that maybe the linkage of giving information for the seminar was not as complete as we wanted to, but we will be pursuing it more strongly in the process to have everybody have the information and understand that when you receive the invitation, which will be in the next couple of days, please feel free to circulate it along.
I will do that.
Your organization.
I will do that.
We hope that we can get to the point where we bust the number of participants in the webinars that Zoom allows as we currently have it.
Certainly I will do it. I will make sure that a lot of people participate in subsequent WCCE webinars.
And any more comments? I mean, don't be bashful. Well, if we don't have any more comments, maybe I would like to read that has been in attendance. And as Engineer Tito Fenech said, we'll be sending the information for those to understand that the difference between Spanish and English is really to respond to the time. It becomes difficult. For example, the one in English is done at a time is more convenient for people in Europe and also Africa. For us, is around noontime because I'm in the middle of the time zone, so it's a 6-hour difference. The Spanish one we do at in the early evening between 6 and 8, which would not be a nice time for people in Europe and Africa to get up and listen to them. Plus the fact that they are in Spanish, but we may want to consider in the future of having, the same presentations in English and Spanish, at least for the themes. So with that, I want to thank everybody. And Tito, do you want to give the final wrap-up comment?
Just to say thanks to Engineer Tomás Sancho. Thank you for being the first one in this exercise in English language. I especially want to thank you to be so kind and say yes to at the first time when I asked you to be ready for the conference, and I hope this is the first one, but I hope it's not the last. We can continue all the entire year in this kind of exercise, making individual conference or webinars with several presentations in both language, English and Spanish. One day, Mondays in Spanish and Tuesday in English. So we hope you enjoy and you participate actively in this exercise. Thank you.
Thank you to all.
Okay, Tito, I think we can, close the session.
Okay.
I want to thank everybody, and especially Tito for all the efforts that he has made, including progressing in artwork for promoting these conferences. Thank you for all attending, and have a good day.
Thank you.
Goodbye, everyone.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you all.
Tito.
¿Qué onda, compadre?
Felicidades, Tomás.
Thank
Felicidades,
you.
Thank you.
Excelente.
Thank you.